This is Election Talk. Election Talk with attorney Carrie Harper on Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are back at it again. You know, it is the season, and it's my favorite season of the year. It's election season, and this election could not be more important. We are going to have on the ballot for the first time in history the first female and female woman of color running for president. And anybody who was out there day drinking after the debate with Joe Biden and Donald Trump, worried and just about to go ahead and just say, forget it, I'm not doing anything. I think we have a new breath of life that's been breathed into us. So we're going to be talking to political candidates. It's not just going to include the judges, but yes, it's all about the judges. So what do we have on calendar today? We have two judicial candidates today. We have George Turner, who's going to be first up running for judge. And we also have Sharon Ransom, who's going to follow. And we'll have a guest, and we're going to open up the phone lines. The phone is back working again. So if you all want to go ahead and call in, you can feel free to do so at that 310-520-KJLH, 310-520-KJLH. And we'll take some calls. And the judicial candidates have agreed to stick around, and you can ask questions of them directly yourself. That was redundant, but we're gonna get to. We're also going to cover some of the deadlines and some of the important things you need to know about the election. And we'll go into that more with next week's guests. We're going to have folks that are directly related to the election, who are working in the election, and who have control about certain things that you can do, certain rules, because we want you to be fully informed. And my thing that I like to say, when in doubt, go ahead and vote and at least do a provisional ballot. And then you can fuss about it later. But don't fail to vote. No matter what, vote. Okay? So, starting off with George Turner Jr., he's a lifelong resident of Inglewood. He's a proud UCLA alumni and dedicated attorney. He's running for seat 39. And he was a valedictorian at Morningside High School, which I think we beat in softball when I went to Uni High School. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about that.
Here we go.
He graduated summa cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa at UCLA. He says what shaped his commitment to justice, in the and community service. Mr. Turner, I didn't get to interview you for the primaries, but I'm so happy you're here now. Tell me why you want to be a judge.
Ooh, okay. So there's a variety of reasons. So being born and raised in Inglewood, California, I was raised smack dab in the middle of this thing we call mass incarceration. So starting back when I was in middle school, I had friends, family, and community members who were ended up in camp and county jail, prisons. And I said, this has to change. You know, something has to change. I became a public defender. I've been a public defender for 15 years. Was really into directly representing my community every day in court. Worked in Inglewood, worked in Compton, worked at the airport, worked at the Metro Court, worked in downtown Los Angeles. And I was like, I want to continue to fight in trials to help my community. And then eventually what happened was the laws began to change. So the laws began to change, and it gave opportunities for folks to not have to sit in custody for, low-level crimes, and also to give, certain opportunities for folks who might have mental health issues or issues with drug addiction. And I said, you know what, it would be a great opportunity as a bench officer to be able to continue to help my community by applying the laws as they currently stand. And so that was kind of the first part of my decision, right? First was, I wanted to apply the laws that currently stands, sort of help my community. And then the second question is like, why run as opposed to be appointed? Mm-hmm. And, as a local kid, I said, everything that I've done with the support of my community. Whether it be graduating valedictorian from Morningside or going to UCLA, everything that I've done has been local and community-based. And so when I thought about how I would become a judge, I said, well, I'm going to do the same thing that I've always said. I'm going to depend on the community to support me. And that's why I decided to run.
Well, alrighty then. I see that you're married to a therapist.
I am.
How has that shaped your defense of folks at the public defender's office?
Yes. So, excuse me. So for years, my wife worked at the Department of Mental Health, and we had very similar clients. In fact, many times we had the same clients. And what I learned is that, well, first and foremost, what I learned is that you have to consider a person as a whole person, as opposed to what's in a police report, as opposed to just what's going on in a particular case. You have to really consider a person in all of their circumstances. Many of my clients have mental health issues. My wife loves to tell me that I can't diagnose people. She's like, you have all of these people, and you think that you haven't read the DSM.
What's the DSM?
It is the Bible for people for diagnosing. So it's I forget the specific a name for it, the specific acronym, but it is the book that they use to diagnose clients. Mm-hmm. Okay. She says, you're not allowed to, or it's out of your scope. What she loves to say is it's out of your scope of practice to diagnose people with any condition, right? But, when you're working as a public defender, you can identify someone who has, mental health issues. You can identify someone who's suffering from auditory hallucinations. It's pretty clear, right? You can identify someone who may be bipolar, but she's like, you don't have the ability or the skill or the training to be able to specifically identify them. Said, excuse me, no, I might not be able to specifically identify them. However, I know that putting them in a cage for 3 years isn't going to fix that, right? So being able to connect them with community-based programming, government programming, being able to help them with housing, these are all issues that I know that they need help with, and being able to have like a specific therapist who is knowledgeable about those sort of resources has been very helpful, or was very helpful in my practice for many, many years.
Let me ask you a two-part question, just parlaying on that. Do you feel that the judicial system has criminalized mental illness?
I think that is pretty clear. Many of my clients are folks who have serious mental health issues, and many of the things that result in criminal charges are a direct result of mental health issues.
And as a judge, how will you help shape, how will you help those folks who are in your courtroom for nothing more than kind of just not being all there, who having some mental challenges, not being mentally available? What can you do? And are your hands tied a little bit?
So, for years my hands was tied as a public defender. But there's the laws have changed, as I said. So there's this thing called mental health diversion. Mm-hmm. Okay, so mental health diversion is something that passed about 2017, 2018, I believe. And it allows for people who have mental health issues, people who are willing to go into treatment, and people who you can draw a direct connection between their conduct and their mental health issue. They can get access to programming. And once they finish, they successfully complete their programming and get access to the resources that the court has access to, their cases can be dismissed. So judges are the final determiner of whether or not someone has access to mental health diversion. Mm-hmm. And I know as a public defender, there were many, many times where you put together a nice packet, you get an expert to identify the person's mental health diagnosis, you get them to recommend a program, you find a program for someone, and then it goes before the court. Excuse me, it goes before the court, and the court says, well, maybe not for this case, maybe for another case, or this person has a history. And I'm like, well, what does that have to do with this particular case? So yes, my hands aren't tied, particularly with mental health diversion, and there are a variety of other different diversions now. So that law has changed, has expanded to there's veterans diversion, there's just judicial diversion. So that's part of the reason why I want to be a judge. I want to be able to give access to folks who really, really are suffering.
Right. Okay. And what other reasons would there be?
What other reasons?
To be a judge. I mean, you're doing good. What division are you in at the Public Defender's Office?
Currently, I work, ironically, in I am the deputy in charge of the homeless mobile unit. So our specific unit, our specific edict is to help folks who are unhoused get their records cleared. So whether it be through expungements, whether it be through expungements, whether it be through vacatures or any other sort of legal option, our specific job is to help our unhoused neighbors get their records cleared.
How many folks are in that unit? Wasn't Holly Hancock in that unit?
Yes, Holly was. Holly, yeah. My dear friend Holly Hancock was definitely in that unit. And it's a unit that's been around for a while. Originally, the unit was we used to actually just go into encampments and knock on doors and say, "Hey." But what we found over the last couple of years is that isn't as effective because it's almost like a solicitation because the encampment is usually someone's home. So what we're doing now is we're joining with community-based programming and governmental agencies to show up to resource fairs. Mm-hmm. So where unhoused folks come to get toiletries and get their IDs, we actually say, hey, would you also like to get your would you like to get your record cleared? So we've partnered with a lot of different organizations. We've partnered with churches. We have a few standing, what we call homeless courts. So we have a homeless court in downtown Los Angeles on Skid Row. We have one in Lancaster. We have one in Long Beach, excuse me. And what we do there is, like I said, people come in and they get their record cleared.
Mm-hmm. How is that going to be affected by... we've been seeing a little bit on the news with Governor Gavin Newsom, who has shown up in his work clothes and work boots, clearing out encampments and seeming to refer to counties who weren't clearing out their encampments as being in violation of whatever they need to do to get that state money. And he didn't really name our wonderful mayor. He didn't really name our wonderful county, but it seemed like he was talking about us. How is that going to affect your ability to find these folks and help get their records expunged and give them work?
So, it's funny. The unhoused population is very, very diverse in Los Angeles County. We do see a lot of encampments, but what I found is that there's a large and growing number of people who are working 40 hours a week and are unhoused. Mm-hmm. And that's something that people really don't know or understand. Many of our unhoused neighbors are folks who may be serving your food, mm-hmm. Folks who may be supplying you things at retail places, who might be working at nonprofit organizations and government organizations serving the community.
Or might be going to school or undergrad and law school.
Correct.
Didn't hear from me. Go ahead.
Exactly, right? I won't judge, right? But absolutely, there are folks who are what you would call productive citizens who are unhoused. And these are people who quite literally just they've already demonstrated that they are moving forward. They want to actually change their lives. They've made maybe one or two bad decisions, or quite simply, they can't afford housing, right? Because housing in Los Angeles County is very, very expensive. I was doing the math. I mean, a one-bedroom apartment is $2,000 or $3,000 a month now.
At least two, yeah.
I mean, that's what, $72,000 a year?
And then that's not including security deposit and
that's not including food.
Right.
That's not including transportation. That's $72,000 as a single person, $72,000 a year, right? So, many of our unhoused neighbors are folks who simply can't make that bar, right? And so being able to get, an old misdemeanor off of their record, being able to get an old felony from the 80s or the 90s off their record might help them get a better job or a promotion. Like I have clients who come in and say, look, I've been working at this job for the past 7 years. I am eligible for a management position. My managers will tell me, hey, I want to give you this management position, but I can't pass the background check. Mm-hmm. Or they'll say, I'm working as a subcontractor for an organization, but I can't pass the background check to become a member of the full organization. And now I'm stuck at this sort of ceiling. It's ironic because, when I first show up, it's like, wow, you are really working 40, sometimes 50 hours a week, and you're unhoused. So yeah, that's something that I'm very, very passionate about. It's something that's really surprising. And I think that is contributing a lot to the expansion of the unhoused population. I think that we have this image of folks who are kind of mentally ill and doing drugs, and there are people like that. But I think that what's really overall contributing to this sort of explosion is the cost of housing and so many people who are working full time and just can't afford to make ends meet.
And how do you feel about activist judges? And what I mean by that, the judges putting their thumb on the scale of justice, being the 13th juror, or I'm sure you've experienced a little bit of that.
I have no knowledge of what you're about.
Right, deniability. Okay.
No, so activist judges. I think that's a term that is really, really interesting. I personally think that we would benefit if we know everyone's background. I think that what we've done too often in court is, you have a judge. He or she sits on the bench. He has a robe. You don't know anything about that person. Mm-hmm. And then they can claim a sort of objectivity, right? I am just an objective person. And then what happens is that you don't know anything about their background. But then if you do any sort of research, you find out that overwhelming number of people who are on the bench now are either former prosecutors or folks who come from big law, right? And they have a specific perspective, right? Mm-hmm. And then that perspective becomes the objective perspective of the law.
Why do you think so many prosecutors have become judges as opposed to defense attorneys, private sector, civil attorneys?
Yes, and just to be very clear, Holly Hancock, my friend, she was one of the first public defenders ever to be elected judge in Los Angeles County. She was actually the first, and that was just in the last election. If I am elected, I will be the first black man elected as a public defender in Los Angeles County if I'm elected. So why is it? I believe because the law is a situation where it's very insular, and people sort of create a tradition, and that tradition is recreated over and over again. So the tradition was for years that you become a prosecutor, you prosecute for a few years, and either you have a connection with someone at the governor's office and they appoint you, mm-hmm. or you can say, I am a prosecutor, and for many years that's who folks were voting for, because judges are supposed to keep people safe, and if you're a former prosecutor, you keep people safe, and that's what people were voting for. Mm-hmm. And so it's created a sort of insular situation on the bench. And I think that it is high time to sort of diversify the bench, right? I think it's time to create a bench where it's more in tune with what the community knows, right? And that's another reason why I'm running. I want the community to know who I am.
Okay. Well, listen, how can the community get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So I am on all the social medias, right? My IG is Turner, the number 4, because 4 is my favorite number, Judge. Mm-hmm. I'm also on Facebook. It's just George A. Turner Jr. And I also have a website. It's George A. Turner, the number 4, judge.com. And I also respond to emails. Email address is George Turner 4Judge @gmail.com.
And we'll put that up on the website, because some folks will actually email you and they will have a dialogue with you. So
I have responded.
I believe you. Okay, so we're gonna conclude with George Turner, but you're gonna stick around because we're gonna open up to a few phone calls at the end. And folks want to call in 310-520-KJLH 310-520-KJLH.
You're listening to Election Talk with Attorney Kerry Harper on Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.
Good morning again, and we're back at it. We have another judicial candidate. We have in our studio Sharon Ransom. Miss Ransom is running for seat 97 for the Los Angeles Superior Court, and all of these judges, these are county-wide seats. So, yes, everybody in the county can vote, from Castaic down to Long Beach. everybody votes for judges. Don't leave the judges out. A lot of people say, oh, I don't know who they are. Now we're bringing them to you, so you really don't have an excuse. Now, this next candidate is a prosecutor. We did, Mr. Turner spoke a little bit about prosecutors, but Sharon Ransom has been a prosecutor for 18 years. Prior to that, Ms. Ransom was a dispatcher for the LA County Sheriff's Department for 17 years. And she has done a host of things. She has endorsements from everybody. She's kicked cancer's butt twice, I believe, 3 times. She's a warrior. She's previously run for judge before. She liked it so much, she's coming back and do it again. Ms. Ransom, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Blessed and highly favored.
Great.
Tell me, hey, it's time, right?
It's time.
I'm looking at your endorsements, and you have endorsements from the New Frontier Democratic Club and the LA Fed, the Democratic Party, LA Times, the Police Association. So your endorsements cover the wide scope of pretty much everybody. Santa Clarita Valley Democratic Club, Stonewall. Anybody that you missed?
No, I was fortunate enough this run to get so many great endorsements. So my campaign is so much better this time. I'm more prepared, and I've really been putting in the work to get out to meet all these people, because that's what I think potential judges need to do. Need to be in the community, know the community, and just have some kind of relationship so that, we're trusted.
Okay. And so tell me about your experience with campaigning. Give me your best and worst feeling about campaigning.
So the worst feeling, I'll start with that, is asking for money.
Don't you hate that?
I hate asking for money. I'd rather just ask for votes. But we need money to run campaigns because we need to get our signs and get our name out there, get pamphlets to hand out, business cards. When we go to all these activities, we meet people to keep our names fresh in their mind. And so we also spend money on consultants and treasurers. And so it doesn't go in our pocket, but it's to help our campaign, to put us out there so people know who we are. And so that's the worst part, is asking for money.
You know what's interesting? That there is no cap on what you can give a judicial candidate, but you can only contribute to, like a Maxine Waters or a Karen Bass, certain fixed amounts. I believe they're like $1,500 for one and maybe $2,800 for the other. You can only give a couple $1,000s to the folks who are Congress or Senate. Why is it that you can write a judge a $100,000 check with no problem?
I don't know. That's the way they set up the campaign finance rules. And believe it or not, I've never gotten a check for $100,000.
Right, okay.
And maybe it's because people don't really know about judicial campaigns or candidates. And, when they go to the ballot, they look at the top ballot, the big offices. But I tell people it's important to vote down ballot, because local elections are what shape your life every day. It determines your property taxes, your water bill, your school districts, the money that goes to them, and judges who have the power to make decisions that affect your life on a daily basis, whether it be criminal, civil, family law, traffic court, evictions, So people should know who the judicial candidates are, because these are people that are very important.
I say it's all about the judges. I mean, voting and jury duty are pretty much the 2 times that you have a level playing field, no matter how much money you make. Right. Do you have any frustrations about? Can you tell the folks the importance of jury duty? Oh my goodness, right?
So I get these questions. It's even funny because I've taught 5th graders about the criminal justice system, and even at that age, they'll be like, "How do you get out of jury duty?"
They always want to get out of it.
Right. What do I need to say? And I'm like, you need to be honest. You need to tell the truth. Like, this is your civic duty. People want a jury of their peers. You're the peers. So you have to serve jury duty. That's the way our system works. It helps our system to have people like-minded in the community that's going to make a decision about whether this person is guilty or innocent, if they deserve potential damages or not. And so jury duty is so important. It's just like you have the right to drive a car. So use those same rights to participate in your civic duty and vote.
Right.
And for us, we fought too hard. Our ancestors fought too hard to be able to vote. And so if you don't vote, you can't complain about the outcome.
Exactly.
And people say, my one vote. It could be one vote that makes a difference. So don't think of it that way. Just get out and vote.
And I like to say either guilty or not guilty, because I don't think anybody's really innocent. Because they might have done something, but they might not have done what they said they did. And if they don't look, I'm on the defense side. Right. You didn't do exactly what they said, then I want the not guilty on that.
Right.
But yeah, the folks, when they talk about getting out of jury duty, it's like, don't worry about getting out of it. The other side is going to try and kick you out if you're bad enough for them. They'll use one of the challenges to get you out.
Right.
So go ahead and give it a shot and sit in there. Tell me this. Let's get some questions here that might not be on the website. Give one of your guilty pleasures. Tell the listeners one of your guilty pleasures. And I'll get Mr. Turner when he comes back in.
My guilty pleasures. I am a die-hard Rams fan. So I am at every game. I was featured in the Faces of the Rams fans. They had a book, like a yearbook.
Oh, wow.
And, they knew that I was a breast cancer survivor. You have to apply for it. Mm-hmm. And I went out and did a photo shoot. And they featured me in this book. So it's great. I have so many Rams jerseys and attire and housewares and things for my car. And so I'm at every game. I try to go to at least 2 away games a year, but I am a diehard Rams fan.
Okay, go Rams. Okay, favorite Stevie Wonder song?
Oh, there's so many. I heard on yesterday, You and I. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful song. And of course, Ribbon in the Sky, everybody loves that. Stevie Wonder has so many great songs. I can't,
It's hard to pick one out.
It's hard to pick one.
You're right. Okay, last one. Let's see. We know that football is favorite sport, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. One good thing about your opponent and one not so good thing about your opponent. And if you want to pass, I'll pass. That's a kind of a hard one.
So my opponent is another black woman. Good thing. I've met her. I haven't had any in-depth conversations, but I've met her. Seems to be a pretty nice person. I think I had an issue with her running with our ballot designations are very important, and her ballot designation is public defender, and she's no longer a public defender. And so they were broadcasting her like she was a public defender. And I think our ballot designations are so important because it really lets the voters know who we are and where our background is. And so I think that's, probably not a fair representation of which her position truly is at this time.
Okay, and you're speaking of Lachey Henderson, who has been a public defender for, I believe, 25 years. And you also... both of you beat out Sam Arbiter. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but he was a deputy DA as well.
Yeah.
To get through the primaries.
And ironically, I didn't really know him. We work in the same office, but I
didn't know him.
Didn't know him. We work in so many different parts of the county.
Okay. And so, well, tell the folks why they should vote for you. We know that you have a ton of endorsements, and you've been rated well qualified by the Los Angeles County Bar Association.
Yeah.
And the well qualified does carry some weight.
Right.
I mean, the way that the LA County Bar Association evaluates folks might be up for debate, but you take that well qualified and run with it.
Oh, yes, I'll accept it.
There you
I'm
go.
not questioning that.
But
we want exceptionally well qualified, but we don't get that. But I'll take well qualified.
Sure.
So, and I heard you ask Mr. Turner why he's running. And so to back up a little bit, if I have time, to tell you why I'm running, I want to tell you a little bit about my background. Okay, and so I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, and raised by a single mother on 105th and between Normandy and Dinker. And when I was a teenager, we moved to Florence and Budlong. I was myself a single parent at 21, and so I raised my daughter while working full-time as a sheriff's dispatcher and going to law school part-time. I put myself through law school, and in the midst of all that, I fought breast cancer 3 times. I had breast cancer in one breast. It spread to my lung 2.5 years later. And then a few years later, spread to the left breast. So that's why I say I've fought it 3 times. And but when I was in the City of Hope being treated, my aunt visited me, and she had gone to University of West Los Angeles Law School. And so I promised God, if you spare my life, I'm going to do something great with it. And so when I got the clearance from my doctor, I went to law school. Now, I originally wanted to help breast cancer patients that I found were having to make a choice as to whether to pay their rent or pay for chemotherapy. But when I got into school, I'd already been a dispatcher for the Sheriff's Department, and I was just intrigued with criminal law and evidence and procedures. And so it was natural for me to go to a government agency. So I applied at some public defender's office. I didn't get hired. And I got hired by the district attorney's office. And so I went straight from being a dispatcher to being a deputy district attorney. I work in the mental health court, so I'm not really prosecuting people at the time. I've been in mental health for the last 3 years, and it's an area where we're doing good work. We're one case at a time, because you can't prosecute a mentally ill person. You can't sentence them, and so once we find they're incompetent, we're doing things to either get them competent, or if they're too dangerous, we have avenues to keep them in a state hospital until they're no longer dangerous. So I've learned so much in that area. So I just want to being from a true Angelino, a native Los Angeles girl, public school, everything. I want to continue to be a public servant, and just on a different level, because judges have so much power in a person's life, and we need judges that are diverse, that know the community, that are engaged in the community. And so not judges that just sit on the bench and take a file and say, this is what this person did, and they're going to go to jail or whatever may have you. But to really know these people, why they're in court, what brought them there. Is it poverty, lack of resources, lack of knowledge, drug addiction, mental illness? And I've dealt with that so much on a personal and professional level. So I think that's what makes me qualified to be a judge at this point in my life. I've have the full life experience, and my experiences have taught me to be empathetic and just see people for who they are and treat them with respect. And that's what we need on the bench, people that understand this diverse LA County and can make decisions based on what you have as a global picture, not just this is a crime that was committed or this is a wrong that was done, but why and what can we do to help this person before we throw them away in prison or jail, to get records, to not be able to get scholarships or go to college or get housing, but try to help them before we put them in a prison or jail.
What are your feelings about those mentally unavailable folks who aren't making it to mental diversion, who are unfortunately faced with the curbside executions like a Sandra Massey or Reginald Thomas out in Pasadena, who are calling for police help and being executed basically because they're mentally unavailable and there's inadequate training at the front line level.
Right. Yeah, those are very unfortunate situations. And I know when there's a call for police involving a mentally ill person, sometimes they're not equipped to deal with what they're dealing with. And, you know, a lot of times they respond and there is a weapon involved. And so there could be more training as to how to deal with the mentally ill people, because we get a lot of families that call and they'll say, oh, I just wanted the police to take them to the hospital. But when they get there, this situation escalates. And so it's very unfortunate. So more training, maybe more resources, more help as to how to deal with it, because a person can just snap, you know, when they can, you know, if they're not medicated and do something very dangerous. I see it every day because I work in the mental health court. I get all the police reports about things that are happening on the Metro Rail, in the train stations, in restaurants, you know, people talking incoherently. And so I think police, because there's so much mental illness now and unhoused people, there should be a lot of training to deal with that, because it's where we are. You know, things go in phases, and right now this is where we are.
Yeah, that's... So how can we reach you? We're running to the end of the time. How can the folks out there reach out to you, maybe email you or call you?
Yeah, so my email is Sharon Ransom for Judge, F-O-R, Judge, @gmail.com. I'm on Facebook at Sharon Ransom for Judge. Instagram, Sharon Ransom, the number 4 Judge. I'm even on TikTok.
Okay. That's hey, Gen Zers.
Right.
They're
you have to
making
reach
a
out to
difference.
everyone.
Everybody.
Countywide election.
Right. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming in, and you're going to stick around for a couple of calls. I don't know if there are some here, so we'll take a break.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to call in, 310-520-KJLH.
You're listening to Election Talk with Attorney Kerry Harper on Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.
Okay, we're back at it. We have in studio not another judicial candidate, but someone who's going to talk a little bit about the consequences or the benefits of voting. And she is from the wonderful city of Pasadena. Her name is Esprit Jones. She's one of 11 members of the Community Police Oversight Commission in the city of Pasadena. She's serving her second term as the chairwoman. She's a lifelong resident of Pasadena, Altadena, and she's committed to the betterment of the community and its wellness. She has done a lot, and she's investigated controversial killings in the city of Pasadena. Specifically, this committee came about after the killing of Anthony McClain in 2020. Mr. McClain was a passenger. If you recall the incident, he was a passenger in an automobile that was pulled over, and he decided to exercise his constitutional rights by walking away and then running. As a result, he was shot in the back twice by Edwin Dumagwendon, who said that he believed he was in danger of his life as Mr. McClain was fleeing from him. He was so afraid that he executed Mr. McClain. The city ultimately paid $7.5 million to the mothers of Mr. McClain's family. Good morning, Ms. Jones.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in. And you're here to talk a little bit about the commission and your work there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We are at the start of our 4th fiscal year. As you may mention, the Oversight Commission, Police Oversight Commission in the city of Pasadena was created in response to the death of Anthony McClain by Officer Edwin Dumagwendon. Our then Mayor Terry Tornick and late John Kennedy, he passed away 2 years ago, city council member, put together the model of oversight that we're using now. We've had lots of hiccups, and we've had some pretty good wins with policy changes and really exciting stuff, really exciting things. We're learning from NACOL, we've learned from the police, and we also learned from the community.
And one of those policy changes was initially the playback feature on the body-worn camera was 30 seconds. And as a direct result of that lawsuit and some of the demands of
Community members.
Plaintiffs' counsel as well made demands on that.
Amen.
And full disclosure, I was the lead plaintiffs' counsel in the Anthony McClain matter. So now that it has extended to a 1-minute time period for them to do that.
Yeah, it buffers longer, and there's also a matter of activation and deactivation that wasn't happening. It was a matter of should versus shall, and it's now shall. So they have a requirement to turn on their body-worn cameras and not tamper with them throughout the day.
And are you seeing that they're actually getting disciplined if they don't turn them on, Ms. Jones? You're smiling. You gotta go ahead and verbalize that. No, you're not seeing that.
I can't say that we have.
Mm-hmm.
There hasn't been anything. We've worked in a way with our department to have annual reviews, and we haven't gotten to the point of the annual review point to see that that's happening all the time.
And I don't understand what that means. You haven't gotten.
We haven't reached that annual point of when that policy was implemented with those updates, including the should versus shall. That was actually earlier this year. We haven't gotten to a point where we would be exactly monitoring. Like, we haven't reviewed anything that says that they are or aren't.
Mm-hmm. And so some of the folks who appoint folks like yourself on this committee are elected officials.
All members of city council.
Okay. And
well, we have 3 community organization seats, but everything, each council member, so the 7 districts plus the mayor, have an appointee.
Mm-hmm. And I see Philip Argento's on there.
Yeah, that's our mayoral, and he is my vice chair this fiscal year.
Yeah, I liked him a lot when he was a judge in Pasadena court. He was a pretty fair guy, so it's good to have him on the committee. I'm
Absolutely,
sure.
absolutely.
And recently, though, Felicia Williams, she ran for office for
assembly.
For assembly against Falante Riddle. So both of them were unsuccessful in their elections.
Yes.
And so, but one of the folks that Miss Williams appointed is a retired police officer, police captain.
She advised that she does not reappoint commissioners. So we lost, and I'm saying it that way, we lost a woman of color who is an advocate for Black and brown communities, marginalized folks. And she replaced her with a retired captain from LAPD. I know he worked there as recent as 2020.
So a captain of LAPD is overseeing the oversight of a police agency.
He is one of the members of our 11.
Kind of like the fox guarding the hen house.
Yeah.
So the importance of voting is to get folks in place that are going to do things that are in the interest of the community, right?
The community at large, not just specific groups, right?
Right. Well, you were telling me off air some things about that. Is there things you want to expand on Miss Williams' position with regard to this matter?
I've never had a conversation with her, to be honest. She doesn't, it's not a vibe. So it doesn't feel like you can even speak to her, even though she looks like us. It's almost like she's absent of what the experience may be for other people that look like us. And so just navigating a system where someone that looks like you isn't someone that experiences life like you or has even empathy. The Bible even says, like, the least of my little ones. And so you mentioned J.R. Thomas, like, is he not the least of our little ones? We talked about Anthony McLean. Are they not amongst those people? Like, they don't deserve to die at the hand of our law enforcement and have members of our city council sit around and go, oh, but it's okay. Like, it's not. It's hurting people, and it really hurts the full 140-some thousand people that live there.
So what can the voters do in Pasadena to deal with this situation? She's already not going to be in her seat anymore.
She'll be unseated in December. We'll get Rick Cole, and he's served in our city council previously. Be aware of what's happening. Like, don't be afraid to have conversations. And there are many local organizations that are hosting various conversations as we prepare for what's happening in our election, and even to be civically engaged just with what's happening. Like, show up to those panel conversations. I just saw something that Rick Cole is posting, something I believe on homelessness. He had one last month in regards to, policing in various communities, where Juliana Serrano was on that panel, along with our current chief of police, Gene Harris. So there's so many ways to be engaged. Brandon Lamar just ran for city council. He is on our rental housing board, and he is someone that is always in the mix throughout LA County. Like, there's no reason, and he's someone that's very accessible and young. So don't be afraid to, like, tap in and check in with the folks sitting right next to you. There's a lot of information and a wealth of it to make informed decisions.
Are you going to continue as chairwoman?
That depends on my oversight commission. We just got start our new fiscal year in July, so it's new, the second term here. I'll be here as long as they let me. I've got 2 more years in this second term as a member of the body, but how the chair position goes, we elect annually.
Okay.
The body does.
All right. What else should all the voters know about what's going on and what you guys do on police oversight in Pasadena? Because if they want change, then they're going to have to vote, because the elected officials are the ones who appoint these oversight folks.
Absolutely. Our meetings are the second Thursday of each month. We're in council chambers at 6 p.m. It is a hybrid meeting, so there's a virtual component. You can join via Zoom. Public comments are always welcome. We also have a pretext stop survey coming out next week. I believe it'll be rolling out and being live on the website.
And explain to the listeners what pretext stops are, which is what Anthony McLean was involved in. But
absolutely, a pretext stop, or also noticed as a minor vehicle violation. But it's kind of just, driving while black or brown. They see somebody that doesn't look like them, and it's perceived that that's why the stop occurred. Especially, they may pull you over because of a tail light or something hanging from your rearview mirror, and in fact, it's a matter of targeting.
Mm-hmm. And basically 5 times more black folks get pulled over than white folks in the city of Pasadena.
Absolutely.
So,
and there's definitely way more folks that are not identified as black in the city of Pasadena.
Exactly. So
I think we're at about 6% in the city, 6 or 7%.
So your community oversight is actually ran, and it's under the city attorney's office.
Yes.
The city attorney defends the officers in litigation, and they are over your agency.
Yes.
Any conflict of interest there, you think? Or can you speak about it?
I don't think I can actually speak about it because I can't prove it. But I've been blocked for 2 years for talking about the hiring process and lateral transfers in particular. I know that some officers that have been involved in some serious matters in our city have been a matter of lateral transfers, and I would like to stop that.
You've been blocked?
Yes.
From talking about it?
Yes.
Well, we could talk about it here at KGLH, because Edwin McGuindon was a candidate at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department who flunked out of that process, and Pasadena knew it when they hired him. He flunked out for integrity issues and for flunking lie detector tests, and that's documented, and the chief knows about it. And it doesn't seem like he's done anything about it. Would that have helped in your oversight on this issue, with knowing that?
I think that all of those things matter. Unfortunately, I don't know that everybody understands how important that is on our oversight commission.
Because, when you have somebody flunking out of processes and then they get hired by other agencies,
right,
and then their integrity is directly at issue.
Yeah.
Like saying, I thought he had a gun, and you hire this person that has lied, basically.
Yeah.
And got caught at it. That's a really big thing, and Pasadena has some serious questions to answer. Hopefully you guys will be allowed to get into that. Do you have subpoena authority there?
Not very powerful. Not very powerful subpoena authority.
Well, either you have it or either you can make them show up or you can't.
Well, we can't make them show up. We could subpoena anybody else. So it's kind of like pointless,
Mm-hmm. How can folks reach you if they need to, as we're coming close to Steve Harvey time? So I just want to, anybody who has information or that could give you assistance, how can they reach you?
My email address is spreejo456@yahoo.com.
Okay, and thanks so much for coming in. We're going to go to Steve Harvey, and we'll be back at it next week. on Election Talk. I'm
Thank
Carrie
you for
Harper.
having me, Carrie.
Thank you for showing up.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
102.3 KJLH and KJLH HD, Compton, Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Inglewood. Radio Free.